There are names that inspire hope. There are names that inspire fear. And then, there is one name that has echoed through centuries, whispered in churches, debated by scholars, woven into poems, paintings, and legends. Lucifer. For many people, that single name immediately brings one image to mind: the devil. The ultimate enemy. The ruler of hell. The fallen angel who rebelled against God. But what if that familiar story isn't the whole story? What if the name Lucifer has a more complex history than most people realize? What if history, language, and centuries of interpretation transformed a single word into one of the most mysterious figures in human imagination? Tonight, we are stepping beyond popular culture and exploring the origins of one of history's most debated names. Not through sensational myths. Not through internet rumors. But through the lenses of ancient texts, religious traditions, history, and literature. Some questions have fascinated humanity for thousands of years. Who was Lucifer? Was he truly the highest angel in heaven? Did he really lead a rebellion against God? Is Lucifer actually the same figure as Satan? Or did centuries of storytelling merge different ideas into one unforgettable character? The answers are not as simple as many people think. In fact, they may surprise you. Long before Lucifer became a symbol of evil, the word itself carried a completely different meaning. In Latin, Lucifer literally means light-bearer or morning star. It was not originally a personal name. It was a title. A description. Even the planet Venus, shining brightly before sunrise, was once called Lucifer. That alone changes how many people first encounter the word. How did a title meaning light-bearer become associated with the greatest fall in religious tradition? To answer that question, we must travel back through centuries of language, scripture, and interpretation. The journey begins not in hell, but in heaven. Imagine a realm beyond human imagination. A place untouched by suffering. Filled with light. Order. Harmony. A kingdom where divine beings existed to serve their Creator. Across different religious traditions, angels are described as messengers, guardians, worshippers, and servants of God. They represent obedience, purpose, and perfect devotion. Yet among later traditions, one figure stood apart from all the others. Brilliant, powerful, beautiful. Some stories describe him as the most radiant among the heavenly host. Others portray him as a guardian of extraordinary rank. Still others argue that these descriptions developed over centuries rather than appearing directly in early scripture. This distinction is important, because history and tradition are not always the same. As we continue, we'll separate what ancient texts explicitly say from interpretations that grew over time. That difference lies at the heart of the mystery. If Lucifer's story teaches us anything, it is that ideas evolve. Words change. Stories grow. And symbols gain new meanings with every generation. The legend of Lucifer became more than a religious discussion. It became a symbol of pride, ambition, free will, rebellion, loss, and the consequences of choosing one's own path. Whether viewed through theology, literature, or mythology, the story has shaped civilizations. Artists painted it. Poets immortalized it. Writers reimagined it. Philosophers debated it. Even today, the question remains: who was Lucifer? And why does that name still captivate millions around the world? To understand the fall, we must first understand the light that came before it. Because every legend begins somewhere. And every mystery has an origin. Our journey starts there. Before we can understand the legend of Lucifer, we must leave behind everything we think we know. For centuries, people have repeated the same story. A magnificent angel became proud. He challenged God. A war broke out in heaven. He was defeated and cast into hell. It is a story so familiar that many assume every detail comes directly from the Bible. But history tells a more complicated story. The name Lucifer appears only once in many traditional English Bible translations, and the context is far different from what most people expect. The passage is found in the book of Isaiah. The prophet Isaiah was speaking during a turbulent period of history, when powerful kingdoms rose and fell across the ancient Near East. One empire stood above all others, Babylon. Its kings were feared across the known world. They conquered cities, enslaved nations, and believed their power would last forever. Isaiah delivered a poetic judgment against the king of Babylon. In this passage, he used vivid imagery to describe the downfall of a ruler who had exalted himself. One phrase compared the fallen ruler to the morning star, a brilliant light that appears before sunrise but disappears as the sun rises. When the Hebrew scriptures were later translated into Latin, the phrase describing the morning star was rendered as Lucifer, meaning light-bearer. At that time, the word was not the name of a supernatural being. It was simply the Latin word chosen to express the image of the morning star. Yet over the centuries, readers began connecting this poetic image with later traditions about the fall of a great angel. Gradually, a title became a name. A name became a legend. And a legend became one of the most recognizable figures in religious history. But Isaiah is only one piece of the puzzle. Another passage often enters the discussion, Ezekiel 28. Here, the prophet speaks against the ruler of Tyre, another powerful king known for wealth and pride. The language is extraordinary. It describes beauty, wisdom, splendor. A figure associated with Eden and precious stones. Because the imagery is so majestic, some later interpreters believed it pointed beyond an earthly king to a deeper spiritual reality. Others argue that the passage is symbolic, using poetic language to expose the arrogance of a human ruler. This difference in interpretation has been debated for centuries. Some traditions see these passages as containing both an immediate historical message and a symbolic reflection of a heavenly rebellion. Others read them entirely within their historical context. Neither view can simply erase the other. They represent different ways of understanding ancient texts. And this is where the mystery grows deeper. The dramatic story of an angelic rebellion is developed more fully in later Christian tradition, influenced by passages such as those describing a dragon cast from heaven and by writings from early theologians. Over time, these ideas blended together into the familiar narrative many people know today. By the Middle Ages, artists painted Lucifer as the most radiant angel whose pride led to his downfall. Poets transformed him into a tragic figure. Writers imagined conversations, battles, and emotions that were never described in the biblical text itself. One of the most influential works was John Milton's Paradise Lost. Although it is a literary epic rather than scripture, its powerful storytelling shaped how generations imagined Lucifer, as charismatic, intelligent, proud, and ultimately ruined by his own ambition. From paintings in cathedrals to modern films and television, the image continued to evolve. The legend grew richer, more dramatic, more mysterious. Yet beneath every interpretation lies the same enduring question. How could a being associated with light become a symbol of darkness? Was the fall the result of pride? Of free will? Or is the story itself a symbolic warning about the dangers of arrogance and the misuse of power? For thousands of years, these questions have inspired debate among theologians, historians, philosophers, and storytellers alike. And perhaps that is why the story has never faded. Because it speaks not only about angels, but about humanity itself. In the next chapter, we leave the world of names and translations behind. We step into the traditions that describe heaven before the rebellion, a realm of unimaginable glory, where one of the brightest beings was said to stand closest to the divine throne, before everything changed. Imagine a kingdom where darkness had never existed. No fear. No hatred. No sorrow. Only endless light. Ancient religious traditions describe heaven as a realm beyond human understanding, a place of perfect order, where every living being existed in harmony with its creator. Time itself seemed meaningless there. There was no decay, no conflict, only purpose. Among the countless heavenly beings, angels were not all the same. Some served as messengers. Some were guardians. Some stood before the divine throne in constant worship. Across Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions, angels are consistently portrayed as powerful servants of God, though the details of their roles differ from one tradition to another. Later Christian tradition speaks of different ranks of angels: seraphim, cherubim, thrones, dominions, virtues, powers, principalities, archangels, and angels. These hierarchies developed over centuries through theological reflection rather than appearing as one complete list in Scripture. According to many later traditions, one heavenly being was described as extraordinary, radiant, wise, magnificent. His brilliance seemed unmatched. Some writers imagined him clothed in light itself, reflecting the glory of heaven like a perfect mirror. Whether these descriptions refer to Lucifer directly is debated, but they became central to the legend that unfolded over the centuries. If such a being truly existed, one question naturally follows. How could someone surrounded by perfect light ever choose darkness? That question has challenged theologians for generations. Many argue that the answer lies in one of the greatest gifts ever described in religious thought: free will. Without choice, love would not be genuine. Without the possibility of obedience, there could be no meaningful loyalty. Many religious thinkers suggest that even heavenly beings possessed the ability to choose. And where choice exists, so does the possibility of rebellion. According to later Christian tradition, pride slowly entered the heart of the brightest angel. Not all at once. Not in a single moment. But like the first crack in a flawless crystal. Invisible at first. Growing quietly. Some traditions imagine a single thought taking root. Why should I serve, when I could rule? It is impossible to know whether such words were ever spoken. The ancient texts do not record them. But the idea became one of the most enduring symbols in religious literature. Pride. the desire to place oneself above the Creator. Again and again, later writers returned to this theme, not because they could prove it historically, but because it carried a profound moral lesson. Across history, countless empires rose believing they could never fall. Kings declared themselves invincible. Nations believed their power would last forever. Yet every empire eventually faced its limits. Perhaps that is why the story of Lucifer resonated so deeply. It was never only about an angel. It became a mirror held up to humanity. A warning that greatness without humility can become the beginning of ruin. Still, an important mystery remains. If rebellion truly began in heaven, how did it spread? Did others follow? Was Lucifer alone? Or did countless heavenly beings make the same choice? The next chapter explores one of the most dramatic traditions ever told, the story of a rebellion in heaven, the angels who chose sides, and the battle that, according to later Christian tradition, changed the destiny of the universe. Whether understood as literal history, symbolic theology, or sacred tradition, it remains one of the most influential stories ever passed from generation to generation. And it all begins with a single choice. There are moments in history that change the course of nations. And then there are moments that, according to centuries of religious tradition, changed the destiny of the universe itself. If the later traditions are to be believed, the greatest conflict did not begin on earth. It began in heaven. A place once defined by perfect harmony became the stage for an unimaginable choice. Not a battle over territory. Not a struggle for wealth. But a conflict over loyalty. According to many Christian traditions, the being later known as Lucifer had become consumed by pride. His extraordinary beauty and wisdom, once reflections of the Creator's glory, were no longer enough. He desired something greater. Not simply honor, but supremacy. It is important to pause here. The Bible does not describe this event in one continuous narrative. Instead, later theologians connected several passages, such as Isaiah 14, Ezekiel 28, Revelation 12, and Luke 10 verse 18, into the broader story of a heavenly rebellion. Because of this, different Christian denominations and biblical scholars understand these passages in different ways. Yet regardless of interpretation, the central lesson remained remarkably consistent. Pride can become the first step toward destruction. As the tradition tells the story, Lucifer was not alone. Other angels listened. Some admired his brilliance. Some questioned the established order. Others, perhaps, simply followed the most powerful voice they knew. History on earth has often repeated this pattern. Charismatic leaders can inspire incredible acts of courage, or lead countless followers into disaster. The legend suggests that heaven itself faced such a moment. Then came the decision. Every angel had to choose. Remain faithful to the Creator, or follow the brightest among them into rebellion. The Book of Revelation offers one of the most dramatic images associated with this tradition. It describes war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon fought back with his own angels. But they did not prevail. The dragon was cast down. The ancient serpent, called the devil and Satan, was thrown to the earth with those who followed him. For many believers, this passage represents the climax of the heavenly rebellion. Others understand it as symbolic language describing the ultimate triumph of God's kingdom over evil. Either way, the imagery is unforgettable. Light against darkness. Faithfulness against rebellion. Humility against pride. At the center of this conflict stands another remarkable figure. Michael. Unlike Lucifer, Michael is never portrayed as seeking power for himself. His role is that of a protector and defender. Even his name carries meaning. Who is like God? It is less a declaration than a challenge. A reminder that no created being can stand equal to the Creator. The contrast between these two figures became one of the most powerful themes in Christian storytelling. One sought to exalt himself. The other remained devoted to the one he served. This contrast has inspired artists, theologians, and writers for centuries. Cathedral ceilings depicted blazing battles across the heavens. Medieval manuscripts filled their pages with winged armies locked in conflict. Poets transformed the struggle into an epic drama of freedom, temptation, and consequence. Yet beneath every artistic masterpiece lies a deeper question. Was the battle fought with swords and fire? Or is it a symbolic picture of spiritual realities beyond human understanding? No eyewitness account exists. No historical record can settle the debate. The story belongs to the realm of faith, theology, and tradition. And that is precisely why it continues to fascinate the world. Because every generation sees something of itself within it. The temptation to place ambition above wisdom. Power above humility. Self above truth. Whether one reads the story literally or symbolically, its message has endured for nearly 2,000 years. But if the rebellion truly ended with defeat, what became of the one who began it? Where did the fallen angels go? And why does later tradition describe their leader not as the glorious light-bearer, but as the Prince of Darkness? Those questions lead us to the next chapter. The Great Fall.